The expectation of the people in Bryant is that we have as good parks as anybody in the state. Conway, Cabot, Benton are always brought up. And these are departments that have double, some triple our budget. But the expectation is that we provide that same quality, and we're doing our best to do that. So when you designate that percentage to parks, you're saying we're going to give the residents what they've asked for, where they want to see their dollars go. And then the last thing I just want to highlight is the more we designate to parks, the better shot we have of completing, making progress on our comprehensive plan that we spent the last year and a half working on. The timing of that plan, which will be, I'm hoping our first presentation of kind of some of the bulk of it will be in August, and that it would be finished by the end of the year, the entire plan. There's a whole lot of details to go into it. But the unveiling of that plan that we've spent money on, there's $50,000 designated for that. We haven't spent all that, but we will. The timing of that plan is going to be attached to this vote in November. In the minds of the people of Bryant, whatever they're voting on in November is going to be attached to that plan. And so they're going to expect us as a city to deliver on that plan. And they're going to expect progress every year on that plan. And they're going to be really excited about that plan. It's bold, and it's going to take us 15 to 20 years to complete. But it's going to take it's going to take the entire leadership of this community getting behind it to fund it and make it happen. It won't happen if we're divided. And so that's why I say what I say about that this is as important as the decisions that were made in the past that we get to enjoy today. Okay. And so Keith Cox, my assistant director, has been working closely with our finance director, who was going to be here tonight, but she couldn't, and John Martin, member of City Council, on putting numbers together to project what next year would look like, kind of where we are and how we got here. The first recommendation that came from this committee to council, where that came from, where those numbers came from. And so he's going to, Keith, I'll give it to you to kind of walk us through some of these numbers.
Yeah. First thing, like Chris said, I mean, all of you were in here back in the spring when we sat in here for about 2 hours one night and went through all the numbers and what that number was that needed to be designated from A&P for parks to continue to move in the direction that we've been moving the last few years, with the improvements, with the capital improvements, but also the operations budget to offer the service that we've been offering. You know, after that, you know, at the end of that meeting, Parks Committee made the recommendation to designate 80% of A&P to parks going forward for the people to vote on that, and you know, Parks Committee made a presentation at council. You know, since then there's been some other things that were discussed. One of those things, and I'll credit John Martin from City Council on this. You know, whenever one of the things being discussed was a 3.8 millage increase, John asked the question of, well, does parks have to get out of the general fund completely? And, you know, with talking with Joy, us collaborating on it, you know, Joy basically said that, well, if that's a big if, but if the millage were to pass at 3.8, she could balance the general fund and still allow, you know, up to $400,000 of general fund monies to go to parks. So that changed a lot for us. At that point, we said, well, we don't really need 80% anymore to break even. Our break even number now falls, you know, between 65 and 70%. There's more negotiations that have gone on since then. But, you know, all in all, I mean, getting $400,000 roughly from the general fund, 65 to 70% of AMP dollars designated to parks is where we would continue to have the same budget that we have had the last few years. This isn't to progress or have any more money than we've had, but to have the same. Now, that takes into account we have gotten money from savings. We have gotten money from the previous AMP money that was left over. We've gotten grants, things like that as well to reach that budget. Last week at council, an ordinance was in its first reading. There will be more readings of these ordinances, but as of right now, that is 3 mills and 35% designated for parks. Where that puts us right now is a budget of $2.8 million. That is operations, capital, everything. That would be our proposed 2024 budget for parks. Currently, our budget this year was $3.7 million. Of that, about $750,000 is capital. So we're slightly under $3 million in operations. So if our budget is $2.8 million, one, capital money is gone. There would be no capital budget, and we would still be in the same boat of needing to go to city council, go to finance director, and ask for money from savings for anything on capital. I spoke to Joy earlier today. I can tell you that savings account looks a lot different than it did a couple of years ago when we were able to go and ask for. Things are going to be a lot tighter on the city budget, so the ability to get money from savings probably would be a lot more difficult. So we would, getting capital dollars there would be hard to come by. Also, we would have to cut some from our current operations. The current services that we've been providing would have to be cut by approximately $150,000. Now, none of these numbers are, they will all be decided when the budget process comes around, but this is what Joy is forecasting right now, is what we would be looking at. So I do want, we've got a lot of our partners in the room. I've got Parks Committee in the room. I'm not trying to really put a dark cloud on everything, but I want everyone to be aware that some of the services we've been providing would have to be lessened. This isn't just we would not be able to get more. It is that we would not have what we currently have been able to provide. One thing I just want to show for anybody who has not seen this. So this is, I have to give John credit for a lot of this. He created this just as an information tool. I know a lot of you've seen this already. I have simplified it a little bit, but I have gone over this with Joy, and she's confirmed everything. But basically, I've broken it down into 2 columns here. This is our current budget this year, 3.717. Our goal being to continue to do the same at 3.715. If the millage were to pass at 3.0, which is what currently the reading of the ordinance has been, Joy has said we may could get some general fund dollars, but there's no guarantee, and if we did, it would probably be very little. So she said, best bet is to go ahead and assume that we would have no general fund. So that's what this column is. We partially get nothing from general fund. And this breaks down the designated percentage as to what our break even would be. You can see without any general fund, we break even between 80 and 90% is what we would need designated to parks to break even there. Whereas this column to the right here, the millage passed at 3.8. That is with us still getting up to $400,000 from the general fund. And our break-even number there falls between 60 and 70% there. So, like I said, this is not to, put a dark cloud over anything like that, but I do want everyone to be aware that is where we currently would be if this continued to move forward where we stand right now. So I don't.
Yeah. So yeah, that was. I think that's one of the things we want to make sure we communicate. Just the where we currently are, how that affects the department, and how that affects all of you. In that we all are working together to provide programs and amenities in the city of Bryant. And you guys have all reached out and are really good about sharing your desires and things that you'd like to see. And we want to do all those things. Trust me, we want to do all those things, but there's a limited amount of resources. We want to make sure.
Can I clarify? I came there because I wanted to see the numbers. I just want to clarify what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, the city has said that they will not put any general fund dollars into parks anymore.
No, that is not. So okay. I'm glad you asked. So let me
because
clarify.
Because the numbers, that's what.
No, I'll clarify. So yes, and some of this is a little bit confusing because the millage. There's two different things that's going on right now. The millage as well as AMP. Mm-hmm. As those dollars, if the millage is less than what Joy's original recommendation was, which was 3.8, that means she will have less money to balance the budget. And she will have to look at the parks in the general fund first when she is looking at cutting the budget. So that's what, so her for, and Joy wasn't able to be here, so I don't want to speak for Joy. Y'all are welcome to ask her any questions. She did say that. Nothing would be for sure until she gets to the budget, but she said her forecast right now would be if 3 mills is the final decision, that she would have to, her guess is that she would probably have to take parks out of the general fund to balance the budget. And if we stayed in the general fund, it would be very, very little. So for us to prepare for
the millage.
Yes, but that would affect parks because her first look when cutting the budget would be to take parks out of the general fund, or at least limit what parks is in the general fund by. So. And
that's very, very common.
I don't blame Joy. I'm not blaming Joy for that. That most cities would, that's where they're going to go first. But that is just, yes.
I just wanted to clarify that.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, and ultimately that would be city council's decision.
Yeah.
However, I mean, I think that most people would say most people are going to look to Joy first and say, what do you suggest we do in making these cuts? And you know, I mean, most people know Joy pretty well. She was very apologetic and saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to have, but I can't,
you're not a vicious person.
But I can't allow y'all to have general fund. I mean, that's where I'm going to go first to make these cuts. So we have to prepare, and that's what I want to be transparent with everyone here, is that the millage vote as well does impact us.
And we start the budget process in September. We start preparing the budget for next year. We'll have a budget workshop in October. So the sooner we can kind of get an idea, a grasp on what we're looking at next year. That's what, again, why the current decision before council has a major impact on us.
So if I understand your numbers right, the way things stand right now would represent roughly a 25% cut in the parks budget.
Not in the operations, but in the total, yes.
Total?
If you consider what we have done when you look at the playground or the tennis courts or the pavilion at Mills or the improvements at Ashley, if you consider that part of the parks budget, the ability to do those things, then yes, you're correct, 25% cut.
And we would not be able to move forward with the strategic plan that we've been working on for 2 years. And
not from any designated funding. That is correct.
And how much have we paid for the feasibility study to the consultant to put together a strategic plan?
Yeah, I think we've paid out about $30,000, right at maybe a little less than that so far for all the work that McClelland Engineering has done on the master plan.
So we thinking 50 will be the total cost? Is that what?
Yeah, that's what was approved by council for that project, $50,000.
I do want to address something else as well. So let's say just where we are right now with the ordinance, it's 35% designated to parks. With assuming that we would not have any general fund dollars if the millage, was, let's say, 3 mills, and this is all like what's being forecasted right now, that 35% is going to have to go to cover the loss of the general fund. I mean, there would not be any of that money for capital in this sense because we would have lost so much general fund dollars. But in that, there is another 65% out there. Some would be an admin fee, so let's say roughly 60%. There would be an A&P commission that existed that, in theory, we could go to and ask for funds to do some of these things, capital projects. That money would not be designated. We would have to go and ask for it. I'm very conservative, so I can't rely on that, especially with the way that went 4 years ago. To me, I can't make plans, and I do speak for me in this. I don't speak for Chris or the department, but if I'm doing numbers on this and what I'm going to tell these guys, what I'm going to tell soccer, baseball, dog park, what we're going to do for you, I can't, in good faith, say we're going to be able to do these things if I know I've got to go ask a A&P commission for it, because at least, not saying that it would be the same commission as last time, but what we saw 4 years ago, the success rate was not very good of being able to get those projects done that way. And so that's we don't even know who would be on it. So that's not making any assumptions, but I am hesitant to make all of our plans and hang everything on the fact that we could go to a 7-person commission that we don't even know who they are yet and be able to do the things that we still want to do.
I think the commission, their focus will be on the bringing people in from the outside, right? The non-resident, offering things for them, obviously, that would help with the sales tax. Whereas when it's designated to parks, the emphasis is on the residents. Now, we are Bryant's tourist attraction, right? We've brought in probably 50,000 people into the city this youth sports tourism season. So we do have that tourism piece. When it's under the commission's control, there will be competition for those dollars. There will be other projects go before that commission, whereas when it's designated to parks, it will be focused on the plan that we've been putting together, the comprehensive plan that we've gotten feedback from the residents on. So that would be one of the things that would change if it's not designated. Yes, that money's out there, but it's not designated, therefore we don't know for sure that it will go to that for that purpose of parks improvements.
What are some of those other things, at least in a general sense, that would be eligible to tap into that money? And what could the A&P funds be spent on?
Yeah.
We know parks. But what else is out there just?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but the way I read the state law, it's kind of two things. There's the idea in the A&P Advertising Promotion Commission that larger cities, right, use that for convention centers, tourist attractions to bring people into the city. So you'll see Hot Springs and North Little Rock and Little Rock have conventions bureaus. But the reason that the law is written that way, that it can be used for that or parks, is there are communities that would rather, that aren't as big, right, that maybe aren't as interested in becoming a tourist town, that invest that into the parks, and that brings people into the city. So those are the two things you can spend: the advertising and promotion of the city and bringing people in, like the Benton Event Center's, an example of that. They built that, with A&P funds. Or you can spend it on parks in the city. You can't spend it on police. You can't spend it on, infrastructure, like stormwater. So that's kind of how when I read the law, again, I'm not a lawyer, but how I see it. It gives cities that option, because some cities aren't going to be or want to be a major tourist spot. They're going to want to invest in their parks.
Some of these, I'm having a hard time understanding why the city funds would be spent on a, let's say, a tourist attraction. Those are often built by private funds. You get investors that go out, and if it's a whole idea, it's going to bring a return, investors will want some of that return. Part of my concern is, why would we spend money, or why would we potentially subsidize a project like that that really ought to fall under the purview of private investors? And we would still get the return. If it's going to be profitable and it's going to bring visitors in, we'd still get the lodging and the restaurant and the dining thing. But seems to me philosophically that if it's a viable operation, and a feasibility study would probably be needed, another one, to see if it is feasible, and I'm sure it'd be quite a bit more than what we've already would have wasted if we don't move forward with a strategic plan. I think it's philosophically, to me, that's a private sector thing. I know a couple of things have been cited as examples, and those were, to my knowledge, privately funded. I'm just not sure that's the business the city needs to be in. Just my thought.
She's the chair. I'm not.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
There are multiple things, yes, the cities have done with it. Benton has made some pretty good use of theirs. They used it initially to bond for their large event center that is used every weekend by Fulton County residents like crazy.
You're talking about the River Center or the Convention Center?
The convention center, over by Tinseltown.
And are there numbers that show what the return on that is to the city?
You know, anybody can ask those questions about sales tax and what are your returns. Do you measure it by the bump of when the event is? Do you measure it all year round? I can't answer that for you. I mean, they know, though, that they've brought in a lot of people, and they know that they're spending money in Benton and they're staying there. But it's also, it can be anything from promoting your city, from promoting what's going on with your city to bring in more business. Doesn't have to just be a tourist attraction. You're promoting, you know, what's going on, so that, and my big question that I have also asked is that we still have a designated amount on every sales tax dollar, correct? It's spent in Bryant?
The Parks Department? Yeah, we get a little bit of the 2 pennies.
Okay.
Brings it.
So, you know, and really truthfully on A&P, they're gonna get what, 3 pennies on hotels and 1 penny on food. So looking at ways to even grow that designated pot on any sales tax that comes in. What can we do to generate more retail sales tax dollars coming in here? Because to realize that amount, we haven't even talked about what that could grow for us also. But they spend it on numerous things, and they
Yeah, I
spend it
think
a lot
that's
on parks, you know.
it's not, I think that makes sense in theory, but I think the challenge we're facing is the amount of money that our park system for this size of a community is robust.
Yeah.
And we've made that decision. We've poured millions and millions of dollars into the park system. And it takes a lot of money to take care of it and keep it running. And so it's,
Absolutely.
and that's my point. What we have designated now is not getting close to actually continuing to provide the services and the facilities the residents expect.
We're not providing. We're not providing right now. I mean, go look at the baseball, go look at the lights, and somebody's gonna get killed walking out here. My personal
There's
opinion.
millions of dollars of improvements that we needed to make yesterday. So we do get
I
that
agree with
piece,
that.
but it's not,
I agree with that.
it's not even coming close to the need.
So in your projections, Keith,
Yes, ma'am.
and Chris, that you've looked at, the need is huge for currently soccer, baseball, those improvements that will be some capital improvements. They still won't even begin to touch the parks plan,
They don't touch it.
strategic plan.
It
They
doesn't
don't touch
touch
it
it.
at all.
No.
So then, even if, I mean, I'm just kind of sitting here going, how many years of A&P would we have to even get all of it to begin to touch what just the parks needs are now, much less the dollar amount on that long-term strategic plan, which I predict is going to be real large. It's
I
going to
mean,
be
you're looking
big.
at what, 15,
I mean,
20
it may
years.
be
Yeah.
15 or 20 years.
I think
out.
you'll have to, there will be other funding mechanisms that the city leaders will have to make decisions on. For instance, every 10 years, taking to the voters to reissue the bond that built this place could be used for the big improvements in the plan. But there are plenty of improvements in the plan that the 70% of the A&P designated could take care of. A restroom at the A complex, irrigation for the ball fields, a new sound system.
But that's the
for
ones I'm
the-
talking about.
We could do those, and with the right funding designated, we could do those in 2024. A shade structure for the dog park. The comprehensive plan, it looks at every park. It's got major improvements. There's 3 huge projects in it. But then there's looking at every park ADA compliance, fixing the littlest thing you can think of, like the Mills Park, the parking in front of that pavilion. And that's one of the reasons it's not done yet. We've looked at every park, and we've looked at it very strategically and diligently to make sure that in the plan, every park will get finished. So there's kind of 2 layers there. And this is what Keith was talking about. When we say we can keep doing what we've been doing, we renovated Ashley Park, right? We renovated Spring Hill Park. We created the dog park. We replaced backstop netting. Like, there's a lot. We built a pavilion, a home for Fall Fest. There's a lot of projects that are possible in the master plan just through the A&P designated funds. And that's what Keith's talking about when you start talking about the conversations we're going to have with our partners. If it goes to the voters at 35% and they ask us, what's this going to do for us? Our answer is going to be, we don't know. It's going to be up to the commission, because all we're going to be doing is operating. If it's designated at 70, we will say, the Parks Committee and the City Council is going to create a priority list, show up, and you'll know what year your project's going to be done. Because a lot of the things that are in the comprehensive plan aren't the massive, big dollar projects. There's 3 of them. They're exciting. They're finishing the parks. They're adding the small amenities that we get asked about every day. I think the tennis courts and the pickleball courts are an excellent example, right? Those courts were so bad, it was a ghost town over there. And now they're waiting hours to play. That's a project that could have been done years ago if we had this kind of money, years ago. All these projects I'm mentioning could have been done. Lighting, at Bishop Park. Could have been done years ago.
We discussed that at our last meeting, what a value we placed on safety, and the lack of lighting going from here to the softball fields is a catastrophe waiting to happen. And would we be able to fund those at the current scenario?
No. No. And if anything goes down, like a pool pack,
We're shutting the,
Talking about that for.
we're shutting the aquatic center down
Yeah.
for at least a year.
Yeah.
Cause it's be a year plus lead time, until we even get the funding.
Well, just
And
in the
then-
winter,
For what?
just in the winter.
yes. In the summertime.
In the summertime, okay, but in the wintertime, yes.
Right.
So, I mean, just, yeah, only.
Yeah, I mean, the A-complex backstop netting has huge holes in it.
But if we don't figure out a way to upgrade these and keep these at what our citizens' expectations are, the baseball, they're gonna lose tournaments. Pool pack people, we go down with that, how are we gonna go to explain it to the schools? They can't use it. I mean, there's expectation we have to keep up. And if we go at 35% or any percent lower than what 70%, we're not keeping up to the expectations that the citizens of Bryant need. My personal opinion.
Or can y'all put those down in numbers? I mean, like, I think what would help in the discussion are some real numbers.
Real numbers as,
A true plan from that aspect
And-
up.
I'll-
And I know you said
That's in the
come in
budget book.
August.
It's in the budget book. It's in the city
Okay, all
council
of
budget
those,
book.
and all of the little,
Mhm.
all of the little bitty repairs are back there, okay.
Mhm.
We need to pull that.
I think, yeah, those are in the budget book.
Yeah.
But I do, because I think one thing that got brought up at the workshop 2 weeks ago was to, a priority of what those are. And I said in the workshop, Chris wasn't there, so I'll give him the opportunity to, but I don't feel like it is my place to prioritize those. I feel like we put a list out there of what potential projects would be, but that is the community as a whole, the people that came up and spoke in the surveys, the people that came to the ward meetings, Parks Committee, council, these are potential projects, but it needs to be the community as a whole that decides what priority we put these into. And so,
And how it would work with a designated funding source is that would be part of the regular parks budget. So we would work with the mayor, the Parks Department would work with the mayor and the finance director to put together a budget, okay? That goes to the Parks Committee and City Council in a workshop. And usually what happens in that process is those things are prioritized. And then it's put in that next year's. So when you talk about the residents deciding, what would happen is the Parks Committee, which have representatives from each ward, the different groups that need different things would be able to advocate because there's an actual budget. There's an actual amount of money that will be able to be used for those projects year in, year out. And so the Parks Committee, appointed by the mayor and council, in your wards, listening to to the people in your wards, and the council would bring that all together in the regular budget process. And then that would carry over and then the very next year. So let's say, for instance, that the Parks Department was designated 70%. It did pass, right? The A&P passed in November at 70% for parks. We could project that budget. We could project the capital improvement and budget going into the next year. We would know what our operations are. We would know what's left over for improvements. The department, we have an opinion on those priorities. That's where we get to give our 2 cents with the mayor and the finance director. But then it's taken to the Parks Committee and City Council. City Council has the final say in setting that budget. I think they vote on that budget in December going for the next year. So we would know going into 2024, for the first time since I've been Parks Director, exactly what capital improvement projects we're going to do. And if we know that, if we have an idea of that in the city council workshop in November, we can go ahead and start gathering quotes, doing the legwork to make sure that January 1, we hit the ground running on those projects. But because we don't know what we're going to get, usually we don't find out till February or March, and that's when that's when we start working on projects. That usually takes at least another year and a half to get those done. So that's another piece of the designation that's important, is it takes it and puts it in the regular city council budgeting process, so that the representatives from the wards and the Parks Committee and the representatives on council from the wards get to decide where that money is getting divvied out.
Rhonda, I appreciate your comments about getting specific on budget numbers. I mean, I think we should all be doing that all the time, to the extent we can. I guess my concern there is thinking about things like a tourist attraction or like a convention center or something that's not even been defined yet, and we say we can't provide any numbers for. That seems kind of an incongruous argument to me. And I think in the absence of having something that is,
You don't agree, or you
I
do
do,
agree?
I do agree with that.
Okay,
I think
I don't know what you're talking about, but
I'm
that's all it
trying
said.
to look for the budget on here so I can go to that page and see what's
Sure.
actually out there, the dollar amount for parks, that they're asking right now.
and for what it's worth, just my opinion, it seems to me to allocate or limit to 35% for parks when we've got a strategic plan out there that we put in place or started that process and paid $50,000 to a consultant to put that together already. Now to say we want to go to a percentage that is not going to allow us to implement that plan is, I think, turning our backs on how many surveys we get back? 1,000?
Over 1,000.
That represent probably thousands of people when you take into consideration kids that are playing on these ball fields and in these facilities. I just don't know why we would do that, to limit it to 35% and have 60 reserved for something that's not even been identified yet. We have a plan in place to be implemented, and we were all set to go 6 months ago. And we had, I don't know, how many people are on that strategic planning committee?
I think it was like 40, between 40 and 50 on the steering committee. Yeah.
I just think we have a plan in place already. We don't have one in the future that we might want to save our money for. That just doesn't make any sense to me, for whatever that's worth. And I think we run the risk too. I can't speak for all the people in this room, but I know them all by reputation. These are the people that are going to get behind the parks. They're the ones that are going to campaign for this A&P if they believe it's really going to impact the parks and improve it. And that's their full expectation. We laid that strategic plan out there. I think we run the real risk of going to what is on the table now of the A&P tax failing. And I just think we need to think about all that and come to, if it wasn't 80%, we understand that. The whole goal of this committee was to put something out there because there wasn't anything out there. Okay? I don't think anybody fully expected it to stay at 80%.
I did.
It's where,
You got up there, I was full
Well,
on, lady.
I had your back. I fully support you.
but somewhere let's come back, see what we can do. And, but I think to go down to where it's at right now is basically a repudiation of the process we put in place 18 months ago. And, it says something about the priority on the parks, to me.
And I also think we gotta look at the future. The future is the kids of Bryant. The kids and the seniors. The seniors is what built Bryant. The kids are what the future of Bryant is. Right? I mean, we wouldn't have had any of this if the seniors over here didn't contribute and put their cents in. We ain't gonna have nothing in Bryant if we don't have the park system to support the kids of the community.
Yeah, and I think the priority is and I'll shut up in a minute, I think. I think the priority is, or the choice here is, do we take a plan as an investment into the people of Bryant and the Parks Department, and as Cody says to the kids, give them a great park system, or are we putting our faith in something that hasn't been yet, much less the feasibility discussed yet? I mean, to me, there's only one choice here. Now, again, it doesn't have to be the 80%,
Right.
but it needs to be adequate. Right now, it's not adequate.
Can I ask a question on, the pages aren't numbered, but where it says administration of funds, and it says 60% of all the funds credited to the city of Bryant advertising and promotion, it's administration of funds C. That says 60% is going to parks and 35% is going to advertising, which is not.
Yeah, this was amended. This was what was presented
So
at
where's
council.
so this is not the amended version.
Yeah, it was it switched, 35% and the 60 were switched.
And what was the reason
Yeah, what was the reason of that?
for
There
why
was
that
no-
was flipped?
There was no discussion.
Just, hey, we're gonna do it this way.
It was amended. It wasn't-
I wonder why. But the 35% won't even touch what we need, so why would that happen? Nobody knows? Does the council know? Who
Question.
flipped it?
Council on
Don't know why. No? Huh? I'm sorry, I can't see with my, huh?
Was that the last meeting? I guess I didn't hear.
No, I'm asking though. I'm
interested in public comments
Okay.
One other thing I want to ask, and I think I know, but as it relates to reduction in operating costs, that wouldn't affect salaries though, right?
No.
Ultimately, that would be through the budgeting process that Chris talked about earlier. I will say that being in council meetings, I have heard council over and over again say they do not want to affect anything with personnel. So my guess at this point is no, there would be no effects on any personnel costs. But, I mean, yes, ultimately, when Joy starts looking at budget cuts, working with department heads, technically anything could happen, but everybody up to this point has said they do not want to affect personnel with these cuts. I'm not going to ask anybody to agree with me, but that is what I
I mean, I was wondering because, it could spill over into something like that.
So was that the only thing amended in this?
There was another amendment, to add a,
35.
35,000, anything, it would have, the commission would have to abide by the city's, rule, anything above 35,000 would have to come to the, council for approval.
Gotcha. Even if the A&P approved it,
Yes.
Correct.
still had to go, but the council approved the A&P, right? Okay.
You mean the formation of it?
Yes, because
I
it's
thought
like
it was
the
a
mayor
discussion
picks
about the
one. and then-
operations of.
No, I was saying
Okay, the formation.
yes,
Yeah.
who forms it, how it's formed, because when you read through how it's
Right,
formed.
right.
Thanks, everybody, for your patience. That was a long, report. Thanks for your questions.
That's been your longest one yet.
Is there anything that the layman people here can do to help with anything other than just go team? I mean,
And vote.
Wait.
Yeah.
I'm here for the dog park, I'm for the dog park people here today, so.
I think what you can do is what you just said, call your neighbors, whoever, that you can get the word out. What we gotta do, because if they don't know about it, they're not gonna vote. Get the right message out, they'll go out and vote.
But even with the vote, if the proposal is 35%, and we need 60 to do what we need to do,
to get started. We really need 70.
Okay.
Just throwing that in there.
Okay,
Sorry.
but then,
Sorry. Not to
we
correct
need
you,
to,
but-
we need to have a campaign pushing council to make that change then, right? Before it even goes to the vote.
Writing letters, does that help?
Correct.
I mean, anything other than just go team?
Yeah. No, I mean, contact your council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any
That's who to
public comment?
contact.
Sorry.
I think
We
that-
gotta jump into public
Sorry.
comment.
That's okay. Public comment. Go ahead.
Me?
Sure.
Okay, now, I'm David Steffen. For those who don't know me, I'm the pickleball guy, There's a few of us in here.
Cool.
You were the original,
Yeah.
though, right?
What'd you say your last name was?
You're the OG.
David Steffen. Steffen is my last name, Stefan. First of all, thank you for what is happening at Mills Park, or what has happened. Love it. If any of you have not seen the groups of players there or here at Bishop Park, pickleball is probably has the most diverse playing groups of, I think, any sport I have ever seen in my lifetime. There are seniors, women, men, children, people of all ethnic backgrounds, all on those courts, playing together, families with multi-generational groups playing, grandsons, dads, moms, grandfathers and grandmothers playing together, all out there on those courts playing. You built 4 courts for us, they are full. You know, we could have 4 more, we'd fill them. And it's just the growth of this sport is untapped in the state of Arkansas, and anything that you can put into that will help, because there's kind of all of these cities in the area putting up little sets of courts. So that's great. Without that, the city would struggle, in my opinion, because one of my first questions when I go anywhere is, where can I get some pickleball courts, or when can I pick up some games? But the bigger vision, in my view, needs to be facilities that can house like larger tournaments and bring in people from multiple states. Hot Springs just hosted
I saw that
a
on the-
550 people tournament coming from Oklahoma, Texas, all over Arkansas. It's the
weekend, was it July 6th, 7th?
Yes, they were showing it on the news.
Yes, and it made the news, brought in all kinds of people to the city of Hot Springs. They had, do you know how many courts they had? 34 courts in the convention center.
In the village.
Oh,
It was in the convention center at Hot Springs.
Oh, that's where they play.
And because they had to house that many courts, they had to tape out lines on those slick concrete floors. And every player that's out there will tell you that is not where I want to play a big tournament, because it's not ideal conditions. Having it indoor is great, but those slick concrete, unforgiving courts are not ideal for the sport. And I'm telling you, the first city or county that is going to invest in a facility that can host a large tournament of that kind is going to reap the rewards.
well, I will say, that is one of the big projects. Not that big, but one of the needs that we saw in the master planning process was the growth of the city of Bryant, the amount of tennis and pickleball courts we're gonna need. One of the projects that we'll be unveiling, that I'm real excited about, would be a shared use facility that could house the Bryant Hornet tennis team, and be used by the Parks Department, sell memberships that folks could come play tennis and pickleball. So that's one of the big projects that has come up in the master plan. I think you'll see some conceptual stuff.
We've got a nonprofit, Joe Dixon is our president of the nonprofit association, and we are in the process of working with schools to build
programs for pickleball now too. I'm working with Benton Parks right now. We've got a kids camp. We've got, I think, close to 30 kids, playing twice a week, out at Tyndall Park. So, it's growing, and that's like more than double what it was last year, I believe, and they're, you know, hoping to get as many as 50 kids next year, so.
Let me just say, I've been playing in the senior center for about 2 years. We started with 8 or 10 or 12 people playing up there, and it's 25 or 30 every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, except for the summer when all the kids are here. But I say, hey, do you live around here? Where do you live? Well, I live in Maumelle. They're driving out here from Maumelle or Otter Creek to play pickleball in the gym out here, and it's just, if you build it, they will come, and we just need to charge something. The dues are way reasonable. I mean, I don't know how that was established before, but it's $10 a month or something, whatever it is. And, you know, I left Little Rock Athletic Club, and it was $92 a month to get there. So it's like a happy medium, but I think people are willing to pay more. And I was just looking at statistics here. In 21, the pickleball grew by 21%, something like that, coincidentally. In 22, it grew by 85%. I mean, it's crazy, the growth, and it's because it's fun and it's social. It's not just an athletic activity to keep you moving kind of thing. So I think that's the window for Mill or whatever you need to do, and just you start promoting that and just say, hey, we're going to build an indoor facility with 10 courts, you know, or it's air. You have platform and the structure, most of it in lighting, but I think there's a great opportunity.
Tell me your name again.
Brad Dell. I'm talking to you.
I know you, Brad.
Yeah, Chris.
Tracy Hand, and also a pickleballer. And I just
What'd you say your name was? Tracy Ham?
Hand.
Hand.
Handy. And I just want to share my personal experience during the winter. I scheduled Sunday afternoons, paid for the courts, and it was just open play. And on the average for 4 courts, we had anywhere from 20 to 35 people on a weekly basis. And while I paid for the courts to ensure reservations, because people were coming in from Little Rock, people were coming in from Maumelle, Haskell, and beyond to play on a cold winter day.
Yeah.
So as far as your winter sports, pickleball would generate revenue as well for indoor pickleball during the winter months. Now, as the weather warmed up, there were fewer people, but on average, we had a good crowd. We even have had to open up an extra court or two as the basketball players led us. But it was a great turnout, and it was all word of mouth. I can only imagine how well it would have been, you know, formally advertised.
Thank you, Tracy.
My name is, Tony Loa, L-O-A.
Say that again.
Tony Loa, L-O-A. And I'm one of the guys from Maumelle. I have, this is my second year to have a membership here. And it started off with pickleball, because I don't even have a membership in Maumelle, because this is the only place that has indoor pickleball during the winter. And, so after coming out here and using the facility, like I said, I've just renewed my membership again to this facility just because of the availability of indoor pickleball.
Bill and Karen come out there.
Yeah, we thank you for that. Thank you.
I would like to say, I'm Diane Williams, and I'm a pickleball person, a senior pickleball person, that had no experience. And the people there are just so great that will in. They welcome me and they welcome anyone in. And I want to tell you about something that I learned. There is a senior citizen Olympics. Every year, all the states go in each state, and you have cornball, you have power race walking, you have racing, you have pickleball. And so every year, it's been at Conway, it was at Loyal, and this year it's going to be at Benton, at the River Center. So I think that kind of speaks for itself as far as the seniors go. And like everyone has said, It doesn't matter what age you are, and it doesn't matter what skill you are. You're welcome. I really appreciate what you've done for the pickleballs outside, because the things outside, because yesterday we had 2 places that we played 2 nets up, and all of a sudden there was about like 20 more people that came in, and so they said we're heading over to Mills, and so that's
go outside.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
You were-
We talked about that.
I appreciate all the work you do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane.
I've already introduced myself as a dog person. My name is Kelly Holmes, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that there are a lot of regulars out there. I mean, I myself, I go too much, more than I should, but I'm probably out there 5 days a week easy. And I saw Ted come in, he's out there, he's there, we've all got our regulars. I mean, we know the people's dogs' names, but we don't know the people's names. Literally. And I would like to say that it's not a huge expense because the land is there, and we have the operations, obviously, to keep it maintenance, and you guys do a great job with it. What we were looking to hope for is a shade, because we all know it gets hot down here. I don't know what kind of shade structure, but the way these temperatures have been going, we're actually not going because it's so hot. So by not having that little bit, and depending on where the sun is, Chris probably seen it, the picnic tables move. And we out there as a group will grab them and we will move them to where we can to get some shade. Because unless you're in the right spot at the right time, it's too hot. There was a lady last week that had a small dog, and she was on the small dog side. And she was having a hard time getting around. Us, knowing the dogs being regulars, said, we know the dogs that are here right now, they will not mess with your little dog, or sit with us and get in the shade. So she's like, oh, that would be great. So I helped her over there, whatever dog came in, they played, they had a good time. But there was no way on that small park, on the small dog park, she was gonna get down that hill to get on that bench, which is down the shade. It wasn't gonna happen. And she doesn't come out at all. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's why we moved tables. And, it was nice to be able to, at that point, bring the small dog over to the big dog because there wasn't any kind of issue going on. And, so we're just looking for a little comfort so we can keep going on a daily basis.
You need like a tent or a
Anything.
metal?
We're looking for something. We're open for anything, like a sail shade. I'm not talking about huge structures.
Yeah.
We just need some shade.
Yeah.
Just some shade.
I'm Donna Wright, I'm also a dog park person.
She's a regular.
Well, usually I'm a regular, I'm like kind of laid off right now, but that's okay. But yeah, my dog loves it going out there. It's just, you know, we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of the regulars that go out there daily. And, you know.
We call foster adoption.
Thank you.
We have people come up and say, hey, can you find a home for this dog? Rescue dogs from there. So, I mean, it's not just about love it, obviously. I mean, I tell you what, there's nothing better, they say, than, you know, the kid sleeping. A dog sleeping is just as good, let me tell you. And mine know if they don't go, they're driving us nuts. They know the time of the day. It's time to go. So they look forward to it as well.
So,
I got them walking a little bit.
Well, I'm Matt Warner, I'm the president of the Bryan Athletics Association, plus also coach the 10-year-old soccer team. You know, we put roughly 600 to 700 kids through this program, not including our football program. As Keith and Chris have brought up, we're hurting for backstop nets and whatnot for the safety, and not just the kids, but the parents that sit behind those. So Keith and Chris and Matt do a wonderful job out there on the fields, and we appreciate all you do, and it allows us to continue through summer. I don't know how many of you guys read the Sling Courier news, but we had 11 teams go to state this year, six of them won state this year, and it's, you know, thanks to these guys. So, you know, there's other things we'd like to do out here as well, combining with the parks as far as covering those batting cages so that when it is raining, we continue to hit. We don't have to go pave those indoor facilities. But like I said, we've been pretty grateful in being able to maintain the parks out here with these guys, and our numbers have grown. When I took it over, we had 475 kids. Last year we were close to 700. With that, we were able to double what we call the Black Sox teams, or our travel teams. Part of our requirement to be in our program is you do have to play league baseball. So we don't just let our travel teams go, be travel teams. They have to actually play with their friends or compadres on the team. So they actually, have to play and be involved in the league. And then like our team here, we're gonna have a small little camp for some of the 5 and 6-year-olds, just to show the importance of giving back for our 10-year-old team to give back to those little kids. So, I just appreciate all you guys do. And like I said, I know there's never enough money to do everything that I want done, but I just appreciate all you guys get done for us.
Thank you.
Well, I'll speak on behalf of the swimmers. I'm Randy Crawford, and I am more involved in the swimming, but I just want to point out that pickleball, Black Sox, they're probably known nationwide. There was a comment made in one of the workshops about, Bryant needs a Noah's Ark. Well, we have it in our park. We have a Noah Park. We have the parks. And people come to Bryant to be in the parks. They come to play pickleball from Maumelle. And then they come to Bryant to swim. Now, not all of them come just to swim, but there's a very good swim instruction program, and people come to Bryant because the instruction here is above any other program, I think. I have a good friend, and he and his family come from Little Rock to get instruction for their kids. Okay, and people come from Jonesboro to get a lifeguard instructor, water safety instructor programs because we have it here and we do it right. I can say that I'm a lifeguard instructor, but we do it right. So we don't need a new. I don't mind a new. Like a pickleball court. I'm not saying we need build a bigger pool, maybe a court, but I'm not saying we need to build something just outlandish just to bring in tourists. We have it. It's in the parks. We have a record-setting person, set records this summer, or this past winter, for the Bryant swim team. He's also going to JO's Junior Olympics this year, and the only swim club he has ever been a part of is the Bryant Aquatic Swim School. That's his program. All right, so it can get to that level. So what can we do? The question was asked, what we can do? You can email your council person and let them know that a comment was made in the council meeting that I don't think the mayor was listening to what the council was saying because he's like, maybe they're not listening. But it was repeated over and over and over again that 3.8 mil would help get to a level that you wouldn't have to put as much from the A&P in. So we need to request from your council person a 3.8 and at least a level of 70-60% from the A&P tax. And then I would suggest that you show up to the council meeting and at least voice your opinion during the public comments there. So, anyway, that's from the swim people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
You don't know me, but I can speak on the swim team, and I'm here for the dog park. But, I'm a single mom, Tiffany Thompson, and my daughter started swimming at 5 years old. She went to Junior Olympics, and she got an ODU scholarship, and she's 25 now and has her master's degree. And if it wasn't for Jill Dowd and the swim team, I don't know if, it kept her in line. It's a great thing. I'm all for the Parks and Recs. I think we need the 70%. We need to take care of what we've got. That's me. Thank you, Tiffany.
And I'll speak real quick. My name's Adam Baker. I'm with Salt County Lacrosse. We have the lacrosse program in Bryant. For some people that don't know about the lacrosse. Bryant had a club for several years. Their founders have moved away, so me and my wife took over it. This year, I'm working with Keith and Chris a lot, bringing back really the Alcoa Park that hadn't been used in years. Like currently right now, I'm doing the fertilization, I'm mowing it, because we have to mow before every game, and I'm painting the lines, I'm doing all that stuff. The lights are hanging down, they're really, really hard, to use, but they've done what they can. And our projection in the future, so we have a high school girls team last year that we actually finished state in the league. There's a league in Arkansas, National State Lacrosse League. They had 10 different high schools, one of them being in Louisiana. Every school has to play at everybody's home field, so all those schools come here. The ones that are out of state or out of town should stay here. So far, the stands there, if you've ever been to those concrete stands, we have up to 200 people trying areas. And our season is March, April. There is a summer season, but we don't have it right now because it's hot and there's nothing there. We have a boys team now, high school, it'll be 7th grade through 12th grade. I think we have 24 boys. And right now, we're hoping, I've been talking to Chris and Keith, like that field is not used for anything right now. I think they practice football in the fall. But if that field is designated as a lacrosse field, that is the only designated lacrosse field in the state of Arkansas. No other school, no other program has one. And every school that has come to that field, even this year, have just been flabbergasted at, y'all have a lacrosse field? I mean, they're like, we have to like battle and beg for these football fields and soccer fields to just go in there and put duct tape lines on.
Yeah.
And we have a field. We've had organizations, I coached for Little Rock Lacrosse for youth. They're like, hey, can we borrow your field this weekend for a game or a tournament? Well, we can't do it because it's not our field. It's just, it doesn't work in the mix. We play travel lacrosse. We went to Texas. We've been to Texas multiple times this summer. There's, I think, several hundred teams. I mean, there's 40 fields at these tournaments going out. And it's just, the projections going forward was, if that's a lacrosse field, build our program. We did a youth camp last month, 3rd through 6th grade, and had 36 kids that have never played lacrosse. And the high school teams came out and helped with all that stuff. So just building that program. And the last thing I'll say is, so far, any senior that plays lacrosse in Arkansas that wants to go to college to play lacrosse, they get scholarships. They've got it. We have one, I think she's a senior this year, she's got a full ride to campus. Our daughter's, she's playing a couple more tournaments, but they have college coaches coming to those tournaments to watch them. And the lacrosse is getting so much bigger in all the surrounding states and 10 schools in Arkansas. So with that part, is giving us the ability to open up a new sport that kids that they don't feel comfortable playing baseball. I coached with Matt and Jeff and Black Sox baseball, league baseball. I've been at all here. My son decided, hey, instead of travel baseball, I want to do lacrosse because there's more of a chance of me getting a scholarship lacrosse. So he's wanting to start focusing that way. We're getting a lot of high school kids started in 9th grade. They're like, hey, guess what? I've got a sport I can probably do and get a scholarship with. Because the NAIA is handing out scholarships left and right because it's not so big right here in the southern states. So that's kind of, in our projection was, like the concession stand got tore down. We got new bathrooms, but we're doing everything on our own. I think we raised $15,000 to do it and offer these kids registration free. We did one fundraiser and raised enough funds for all the kids to play for no. And with that part going forward, we can keep growing that and offering that bigger, but without it, we don't know what it's gonna look like. And we keep having people, hey, what are we gonna do? Well, I just don't know. I'll be out there with my lawnmower mowing every day. So that's kind of, I wanted to, that's part of it. So.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
I'm the next, my name is Jeff Hall. I'm the president of Central Arkansas Soccer Club. I also am involved with the BAA. My son plays baseball and he plays football. My daughter plays soccer. So I'm at the Bryant Parks facility probably 4 or 5 nights a week during the peak times. And I can speak for soccer and probably for baseball. I know Matt left, but if our members knew that maybe some services would have to be cut, namely overseeing the fields during the winter or the fall or the winter, they would not be very happy, and you would potentially lose, some investment from families in not only soccer, but perhaps baseball. And so I feel like maintaining what we have has been a struggle, honestly. So if we can do a better job of maintaining and then also improve what we have, I think that's what I'm hearing at least is if we can make sure that we can maintain and improve what we have existing, we can better meet probably the expectations of the community. And that's just kind of, you know, when we hear, we're gonna take away your overseeding, we're like, well, how are we gonna play soccer? Like, we can't play on dirt. So, I mean, that's just very, you know, one of the concerns that we have is we've done a very good job, I think, as a parks system of maintaining what we have with the resources, and we could do a better job if we had more resources dedicated. And then I'd like to go back to the question. I'm not a Bryan resident, but I would love to hear the answer. If there's a recommendation from a committee and it gets flipped, how does that look at the meeting? Like, how does that happen?
And why?
Well, and where did the 25% go, right? Because if we're at 60% in a proposal, and then it drops to 35, 25% went somewhere.
We actually started at 80. Our first recommendation was 80.
The recommendation, well, what it came out on the first reading, it was basically flipped. So, I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the question was, how did that happen? Did we get an answer on that?
We didn't get an answer.
I can speak to that. I'll preface this by I'm not speaking for council, I'm speaking for myself, so take this with a grain of salt. But first of all, the recommendation was made to flip it. 7 out of the 8 votes voted yes for it. My personal vote for yes was the fact that I feel like voting for that majority of parks, and I had a conversation with Richard this morning, we met and we talked about it at length, but I feel like that majority of parks, we're pigeonholing ourselves, because if it goes to vote of the people, and we meet these expectations, it has to go back to the vote to reverse, right? It has to go back to the vote for the A&P to get the dollars back. So I feel like, I looked at it as an opportunity to park. I said that to Chris after the meeting. I said, I look at it as an opportunity. I feel like there's more dollars out there to get for the A&P. I am pro parks. I'm with you. I'm at a park 4 days a week. I live at parks. But I look at it as like there's a more majority, we're less pigeonholing ourselves by open for the A&P Commission to approve that money for the park. So if Chris, Keith, and their teams go to A&P to say, hey, I'd like the lights for security on Bishop Park, I can't fathom the fact that the A&P Commission would say no to that. So I look at it as like it's an opportunity to go look at that and reach out for those dollars on the other side. So that's why I believe this. This is not against the parks. I feel like there's a lot of connotation here that maybe council's against parks. I don't think that's the case. I think it was the fact that like we have to leave this open. If we give 70% to parks and 30% to the A&P Commission, when will that be reversed? Or what's the opportunity where parks can go out and get that money on the other side? So I don't know if that answers your question, Jeff, but I mean, that was my perspective, so.
And I'll give you a little history. There's a 1 cent, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, go ahead.
There's a 1 cent sales tax that the citizens passed probably before Jordan was born, that was divided up into different entities within the city, and probably 15 years now. It's really out of balance for one department, but the city was afraid that if they took it back to the little people, they voted away. And police and fire depend on that. It was divided up 4 ways: police, fire, parks, and animal control. And so the percentages maybe weren't positioned the way they should have been, and we wanted to change that, really needed to, for funding, to give parks more money, for instance. But we were afraid to because the citizens could say, oh, well, no, and you lose everything. That was I think maybe that's what George's talking about, is not pigeonholing us into something that, I think the council looks at not just today and the things we need today, but 15, 20, 50 years down the road, where's the city gonna be? And what are our needs gonna be?
So I'm Crystal Baker with Lacrosse as well, and I just have a question. So if it goes to a vote like it is and it doesn't pass, what happens to the funding?
we lost 21,000, is that how much it is? For the
Put it on
election?
the ballot.
We lost $21,000.
And we still don't have funding.
And we still don't have the funding to recoup from the raises we had to do for life safety.
I will say that for me personally, I mean, I've heard from Chris, I've heard from the Parks people, and I'm a Parks person. I'm one of the people that, my name's over there on the plaque. I worked past the Sunday to get Bishop. I believe in parks, and parks are important, but I also represent the whole city, and I heard a lot of feedback from both sides, and so it's hard to make that decision, it's hard to weigh that out, but I'm not an anti-parks person, I'm definitely pro-parks.
But, and also, Jordan, I mean, hey, we're friends, but I also see where you're coming from, but I don't think that we need to put all our, or like you said, the lights, that we're gonna have to rely on the committee. We don't know what the committee's gonna do. We proved that last time in the last A&P. So we don't know what the committee's gonna do. Are they gonna be pro, for instance, you said put the lights in? I mean, I would hope to God so, for my heart, I hope they would.
I don't know.
But if it's designated, we're guaranteed that we could save a life out here. That we could put the lights in, if it's designated.
Right.
It's my way of thinking on it. I'd rather see it be designated than not designated, and then it's free for all for anybody to come do it. Get a share. Because if it's under 35,000, the commission doesn't have to go to y'all, correct?
Correct.
They can just sign off and there's that money going away. So.
But I feel like a lot of this is, you're taking a negative approach at this. There's also some positive to this.
There is.
There's a pool of 60% of A&P dollars that could potentially, parks could access. Like, and that's what I was saying, it's an opportunity. I think everybody's I don't want to speak for everybody, but people are in the mentality that dollar's not gonna go because of the experience of the A&P commission previously. I wasn't a part of that.
Right.
Neither was 50% of the commission, maybe even more, right? So I look at it like that, we're looking at this as a negative light, but it's actually, to me, it's an opportunity, and it's a potential to get more dollars for the parks by approaching the A&P commission. So I guess that's how I look at it.
So then what are we as a
There's
city?
other council members in here, Cody.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I know.
I was just saying, because you said the lights.
Well, they
on that
brought up the
part.
lights, they brought up the lights earlier, so I was using that as an example.
So let me ask this question. So then, as parks, as city council, as chamber, as everyone involved, what are we going to do to get the people to vote for this? What's the plan?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
Okay.
based on your percentages that you're talking about,
Mhm.
it resembles a parks tax and not an A&P tax.
That was the conversation.
We talked about some of that. But then what's the plan to get us, how do we get it passed?
When we passed this over
Yes.
here.
I helped work with you,
Yeah.
I was, yes.
It took a lot of grassroots effort.
Yep.
We taught people, but we also painted a vision. I mean, to be honest with you, we've not seen the Parks Master Plan. And we look at, council looks at things as you have a funding, you have a number that you're working against. We really don't have a number, we're just, if you have, I'll just use this as an example. We had a vision for Bishop, and we painted a picture of that vision, and we were honest with the people and told them, this is exactly what the money's gonna be used for. And they voted for it. I think you have to be honest with people, you have to give them a vision, and whether you do it as a parks tax or A&P, that's what 80% looks like a parks tax to me.
Or if we look at it, you can look at it as a tax if you want.
Mhm.
But what I would submit to you, whether it's 80% or 60% or something significantly more than what's on the docket right now, look at it as a parks investment and a fulfillment of a vision that is being put together that has the input of more than 1,000 people in this community. They're saying, this is what we want in our parks. So you can position it however you want, but this is a parks vision and investment. And I think if we start calling it a tax, I mean, surely it's gonna, it has a negative connotation. And I will tell you that you talk about a vision, that's the strategic plan. And you've heard the vision from the people sitting around this table tonight and of what they want. And they've gotten very specific. I mean, I just don't think we need to be getting caught up in semantics and saying this is a tax. This is an investment. And if you start talking about a vision, we have one we spent the last 18 months putting together that under the current situation and the current funding model, we are not going to be able to implement, where it's going to lead to potentially the reduction in the parks budget of 25% when you get down to raw numbers. And I think we run the risk of people in this room not having the energy to go out and work for the passage of the tax. And we may be contributing to its, if we leave it where it is now. I'm not saying it has to be 80, but it needs to be somewhere north of where we have it right now in order for us to do what the people of the city have indicated very strongly that they want done.
I think that pickleball is pickleball is a huge sport. We've had conversations about the pickleball league addition.
But what we've heard tonight from these.
But some of you, like that's kind of like Jordan's saying, you're looking at it negatively.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I am looking at, hang on. You just said something. You said, I'm looking at negative. I am not. I am looking at investing in this park system. That is a positive thing. Mm-hmm. We are going to limit ourselves if we go to the 35% or whatever it is. And the strategic plan, we will have wasted a lot of people's time, a lot of people's interest, and a lot of people's insight, not to say anything about the $50,000 we'll pay, that we will have paid to a consultant. So I reject the idea that this is a negative approach, especially when you take that 65% or whatever it is. I'm sorry, I'm not good at math. I guess it's 60% for something that has not even been defined yet. Okay? I'm not saying we need all of it. Absolutely not. But we need enough to be able to invest in this community, in our park system, in the strategic plan. And I think if we do not move forward with the funds to implement this strategic plan, we are going to be turning our backs on a big part of the population of Bryant that we made a pledge to 18 months ago. That's just my view. But I reject the idea that it's a negative approach. I think it's a very positive.
Well, let me clarify. When I said negative, Richard, I meant like we're looking at it like we're not getting the dollars. That's what I meant negative. I don't mean that, I agree with you. I think we're investing in the park. But when I said a negative, I wasn't pointing fingers. I was just saying we're looking at it like we're not going to get the dollars, but that pool of money is out there to obtain.
That's true.
And that's what I meant. I was like.
But then they're competing against other interests.
That's correct.
And if I can't find private funding for my erotic art museum idea, and I want to bring that to the A&P Council. Is that where this is going?
I'm out.
We're going to bring in all kinds of interest to the city because of this museum, and but it's and that's a silly concept, but it's not there for the parks necessarily, and as the wind blows with this A&P commission, there's no telling where that's going to be put. So, having it designated for something that we're all saying is a good idea in the park system, that commits us to that. And I mean, unless there's something out there that's proposed that is superior that we think is going to be a better investment for the community, then to me, it makes sense to put it where, the people are interested in spending it.
Wanda, did you have something to say?
I was just going to ask a couple of questions. I'm Rhonda Sanders. I'm with the Bryant Chamber. Hi, David. We'll finally get to meet in person. We almost had a pickleball inauguration. But anyway, just a couple of thoughts and questions. The master plan, will not truly be unveiled and defined with proposed dollar amounts until, say, August, September.
That's not true. I think we'll have enough in August to give you, what we're working towards right now is to be able to show City Council and Parks Committee each park design, each park in our system finished, and 3 major expansions, okay? So we're working really iron out those details right now. Those will have numbers attached to them, yes. But there's a whole lot of detail in the comprehensive plan, like national averages, the growth projections. You know what I'm saying? So there's like there's like, when I say in November, you're going to get the entire thing that's, you know, a lot more information. What we're hoping to have in August is, here's what we think every park in our system looks like finished, and here's the 3 big future expansions that we think that make sense from what we've heard, what we've studied, what we've been looking at in the last year and a half. So when you talk about those, like for instance, the shade structure for the dog park will be on the Alcoa 40 finished plan.
And it will be
new lights for lacrosse. Does that make sense? All of those things will be there in August.
along with the estimated, a good estimate, better than what we ended up with the pickle.
Well, okay. Now, Rhonda,
but they,
let's be fair. Now, that was not nice. That was not nice. That was not nice.
I will slap my hand.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm just trying to get to, I think what a lot of the businesses are interested in, you know, they want to see, what are we really talking about? What are we really talking about estimates? What are we really talking about dollars? And that's why I went back to, we've got a projection idea of what it's going to bring in. What is this plan really going to cost us to get everybody what they want and need, so that we can begin to lay it out and look at it, and then that's what you have to work with to get votes. You know,
and here's my concern. So when that comes out, and then the A&P tax is only going to generate 30% of that.
Amen.
It's not even 30% of that. I mean, we're only going to get 35% of it, whatever it's.
Well, but the A&P, I'm not disagreeing. The questions I'm
then it's going to be voted down, and we got no funding.
The council needs. They need to have an idea, just like everybody else does, and they may look at things differently when they know.
So what do they have in their hand right now?
We have estimates on every one of the projects that all of these groups are asking us for today. They're in the budget book.
I just looked in the back of the budget book, and that's what I was trying to look at.
But they're not visualized, right? The master part of the master plan is going to be to put that so you can look at
So council has the money amount, right?
They have the money amounts, but what you don't have are the bigger projects, the expansion of Midland. The expansion of Midland Park is going to cost a lot of money. So, but what we do have is, we know, for instance, that 3 years ago, I think when we went to council and asked for lighting for Bishop Park, it was $500,000 to put lights out here, and they said no. Right? That was their decision. So we can probably project that based on inflation. We know that number, right? The idea that we don't have the numbers to show every one of these groups what it will cost to do what they've asked us to do is just not true. We have those numbers, and we've had them for years. We keep updating the budget book every year, and that's brought to council. I don't think it doesn't make sense to me. It's not wise to me for us to say, you need to give us very clear numbers before we'll vote and say 60 or 70%. But we're also going to give 60% to a commission that we don't even know who they are yet. So what I'm saying, and I think another thing that's very important for everybody to understand in this discussion, and why I started there, started here. We don't have the money to take care of what we have. This isn't an issue of dreams that we want. This is an issue of keeping our parks moving forward like we have the last 7 years.
And that was my point. That's what I was asking. The 35% doesn't take care of what we have. That's what I was trying to say. The 35% doesn't take care of the aquatic center and the baseball fields and the lights. It doesn't even give us lights out here to start with.
Which I do have the resources for immediate revenue for indoor courts for pickleball. Have to lay out any extra lines, you already got your lines marked, you already got your net, and you have immediate revenue.
How much is our annual?
Right.
So I think that's part of the
But if
designated
something's great,
versus,
yeah, but if something,
that's part of the, I think
How much
it's part
do
of
we
the
have budgeted
designated
now
versus
to keep
non-designated discussion. If it's not designated,
Mhm.
we will fall behind. It's not a matter of if, it's when.
mhm.
It's when
Because when
we
something
start
breaks,
to see
we're in
things
trouble.
continue to decline, just like the 8th complex backstop netting. It is not repaired because we don't have the money to repair it. That's not a big deal as far as.
Every single month.
So what I'm saying is, as the Parks Director in my 8th year, it may not be next year, but you give it 2 or 3 years at what's currently presented, and you don't go to 60-70% designated, you will see a decline in our parks. I guarantee it, because I love that everybody's here. There's a there's a pressure on our park system. We have thousands of people that are using our parks every day. That facility is covered up. We are, the Boys and Girls Club's busting at the seam, the senior adult. That takes a toll. They're wearing down. They're going to continue to wear down. And if we don't make the right decision here, we're going to see the results very quickly.
What was the minimum percentage to state equal like this year's budget?
What, our budget this year, 3.7 million.
So, but the percentage.
3.7.
The percentage that you
The
need to
AEP
even
percentage.
say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, the percent, well, that depends. The millage, is the millage at 3 or at 3.8? So, yeah.
Okay, so,
But and I don't mean to put it on the millage. I know there's a lot of stuff, but that means, are we getting general fund dollars or are we not getting general fund dollars? If we are, then your percentage is 65, between 60 and 70.
is that it? I think, Adam, are you asking, say it's at 3% millage,
3 mills, that means no general fund dollars.
so how much A&P?
Oh, 85.
85?
I mean, we knew that
To stay even where we're at right now,
we knew that when we talked in March, but we knew 85, like, we dropped it to
Right.
80, saying like, hey, we can't ask for.
and then if they do the 88? Is that what y'all, was that the second?
3.8.
3.8?
It's at 3 point right now. It's 3.8 is what you can raise it, the max you can raise it without it being voted.
No, we had that
Five, if you go above.
We referenced 3.8 is what I'm trying to say to me.
Okay, so 3.8.
3.8 is what Joy's original thing she brought up, because that's what Benton's is. I mean, if we're being honest. That's-
Okay, and how much of that is A&P that you'd have to have?
It's 3.8, 65.
Equal with this year's.
And that is taking, yeah.
And Rhonda, what I would tell business owners that have that concern, I would say people aren't going to want to come to our town. Mills Park's a great example. Those tennis courts, nobody was coming.
I know that.
And now
I
it's
understand
packed. So it's not an issue of, hey, how are you going to spend this money? It's an issue of, do you want your park system to slowly decline? Or do you want it to slowly improve? Those are the two options. That's why this decision is so important to the future of the park system.
But I think it also affects, my personal opinion is that if you do invest it into the parks, like Richard said, it's an investment. It's going to be an investment to the business owners of Bryant, because all the baseball tournaments, pickleball tournaments, everything, they're all going, like somebody said, I think Jason and Jack, right out there needs to be a sign going to the right to feed all that. The chamber, the whole city of Bryant needs to work together. It needs to quit being pulling strings over here, pulling strings over here. There's a big basketball tournament this weekend here, full for 2 days, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. It had to overflow over to Benton. The chamber, which I already talked to you about it, Rhonda, but there ought to be each coach packet. There ought to be a packet that goes off to Hands Off that has a full list of the hotel's businesses. From then, they're going to go off and be able to contribute and help out. And it's going to be money making for all the businesses here. So,
But they gotta turn right when they go out of here.
right, but that's what you do. But that's what you do.
And we gotta have signs put up there.
Right, but that's
Tell
where
them to
the,
turn right.
Exactly.
that's where the
Spend their
chamber,
dollars, right.
that's where the
Put
chamber and
coupon in
the
the bag,
community
yeah.
works together
Now,
to
the
be,
chamber
to go
doesn't pay
off.
for those signs.
No, the right, but the chamber can help promote them tournaments,
Yeah,
help promote them.
gotta spend money to make money. The more
Yeah.
people
Right.
that spend money.
So then,
the
let
more
me ask,
people that spend
so then-
dollars in Bryan.
So part of that money, the money that would be designated for, that's sitting in A&P committee, that's gonna go to advertising, like
It
what we're
could,
talking about.
yeah,
I mean,
it could. It could go, that money could pay for beautiful signs everywhere. It could pay for roadblocks to Benton.
I mean, let's just get real.
Okay?
Let's just get real.
You know,
That works for me.
let's place a wreck at every corner on the way to Benton, so they gotta go this way. It could pay for all kinds of promotional efforts. It could pay for it could pay for people to reach out and work with every one of these associations to get more tournaments here. I mean, some cities use their A&P tax, you know, to hire someone that does nothing but works the region for promoting, hey, let me hook you up with Chris Treaty's Park. They got the bomb when it comes to baseball or pickleball or
Do
whatever.
it. Say that again.
Lacrosse.
Or they could use it to do a museum, I mean, that's what.
They could, but I will tell you that an A&P commission is held just as accountable to the public, because you have the right to go to their meetings and voice opinions. They have the same sunshine laws that the city has and the council has. You know, they got their hands slapped several years ago because they started trying to hold secret meetings. They can't do that. They have the same ethics and the same rules that the council has. Things have to be done in the open,
Yeah,
you know.
but they can also, because nobody knows who they are, but they can also flip a vote just like.
They can. I mean, welcome to politics.
And that's,
And I will tell you that in 3 years, there may be a new mayor who doesn't care a flip about the park.
You're right.
And says, we're cutting anything, you know,
They'd never get elected in this town.
Let me say, I don't know, but I'm just saying politics is politics. And administrations do come and go, and focuses change. Dollar amounts for what, steel goes up, wood burns, you know, whatever it may be, all of that stuff, we are to a certain extent stabbing in the dark on most all of this. I think the important part is that we have to have a united plan as best as we can that leaves flexibility, that is clear to the public what you're going to get, that allows for some vision, because when you start talking about building a facility that could house basketball and pickleball and all these things, well, let's just sign up all of A&P dollars for the next 30 years to build it. But if that is,
Can we put that on record right now?
Can we, yeah.
that's fine with me. That's the vision.
If we pigeonhole the A&P commission, it could be a partnership. If we don't pigeonhole the A&P commission, something could happen where it's a partnership with the parks and the A&P commission, and the A&P commission actually own the building, but the parks run it. That's
And it's
where
funded.
That's where
where we're missing it, guys. It could be that massive building that had 36 pickleball, courts, and then the basketball courts and the parks from it. It could be that. That's where we can't pigeonhole anybody. That's where Jordan was talking about that. We're not trying to pigeonhole anybody. And it doesn't pigeonhole Chris. If he comes up with this idea and he wants to build that building, 70% will be available to him, 65% will be available possibly. That's the whole point.
Maybe I should say it different. In my opinion, we're pigeonholed. We have invested way too much into our park system.
Up with the budget we have.
We are pigeonholed. We need to fund it or it will decline. Like I said, we've seen it. We're gonna relive. History's gonna repeat itself. It's gonna decline.
That's why I asked you about a parks tax.
Can I voice my personal opinion about the parks tax?
Sure.
And we all met in here. Our biggest concern on the parks tax is we come every single month, we have a city council meeting, and we have people's houses that are flooding and everything. So we proposed the A&P tax to go off because it gives you a right to go off and to eat dinner outside. Surely nobody from Bryant staying in a hotel here. That's all your extra people coming in. Those houses are flooded, okay. But my heart can't go off and expect somebody that's struggling every single month to stay afloat because their house is flooding, property's flooding, but we're gonna go off in charge. Yes.
They can't feed their kids.
Can't feed their kids right now. So we're gonna add another tax to them when we could at least give them an option of, hey, we can go to the grocery store, not get that extra parks tax, cook at home, or we can go out to eat.
That's their choice to go.
It's their choice. It's the way that I don't know how many's in this group, 8. That's how we came across not doing the parks tax.
But here's the struggle that I think the whole thing is gonna have with that argument is that this group is asking for a 3.8 increase in the millage. And that's
What group is?
No.
What group is? Hold on, what group is?
No, this park committee didn't ask for that. That has to go to fund fire and police, which we need.
But you are asking these very people to support that because that is.
I'm not.
No, that 3.8.
No.
You just said it.
No, that affects the percentage.
Yeah.
I think that.
So y'all aren't supportive of that.
Not to say that, I think.
Okay, I just want.
I'm not supportive of
I'm
it.
not arguing either way, I'm just saying, where we start having these
I
conversations.
think you need to be
it's
careful when you say we've asked for that. We have not.
Okay,
We'll speak for ourselves.
okay. Well, I'm sorry, Rich, I thought I heard y'all say that,
No.
that's why I'm saying,
No,
okay, so you do not support it, okay.
I want to be very clear on what we're.
I can say that, I did say that, because I support a 3.8 tax. But, again, let's look at it from the macro level, not from the parks. The city has about a $1 million shortfall. That's gonna grow. I guarantee you the city's property tax is gonna go up. You watch the news tonight, you're gonna see a press release about schools, and the price on schools has gone up. All right, for school property. So the price on this property is gonna go, for the insurance, is gonna go up. All right, now, we have a 3.0 millage. That's gonna get you $315,000. If you went to 3.8, and again, I'm gonna pay that tax because it's gonna be on my property and my personal property, I get that. But it goes up to 612.8. All right, so you're a little over halfway to the funding shortfall that we have in the city. That was necessitated by needing to pay fire and police more so that we can maintain ISO 1 rating on the fire side. Otherwise, your property insurance is going to go up even more than they have been. Anyway, I digress on the insurance side of things. Anyway, and I'm glad that we're not going up to a 5.0, which is what we legally could do without a vote, but that would fully fund it.
But if you just went up to a 3.8, you wouldn't have to put as much into from the A&P money into the parks. That's my point. And then more could go to the A&P commission. All right, I'm looking at this not from funding parks. I want to fund the city of Bryant.
Yeah.
And the city of Bryant needs funding. So if you went a 3.8, which again, that's just me. All right, the committee didn't say that. I'm not even a committee member. So that would get you over halfway there, and then you would need less from the A&P money which could be taken out of the general fund, which could then fund the city. That's my whole point.
Right.
That's why I wanted to do that.
And that was what you're saying about coming out of the city budget was where we as a group came up with the numbers we were coming up with.
Right.
We had Ashley here, we had different ones here looking at legally what could happen.
Right.
You know, and so that we were looking at the big picture of how we could help alleviate some of the city budget. That's what we were looking at.
That was. There was a comment that there would be, I mean, at one of the workshops, there was a proposal to do it at, I think at 50% to the parks. That was at the workshop right previous to the first reading. And then at the first reading, it was proposed at 60%, and it got reduced to 35 instead of the 50. So there's another thing. I mean, my goodness, if you go to 50%, technically it's at the park, so it technically wouldn't be a parks tax. But anyway, but I don't think you need to call it a parks tax anyway, because as you said, most of that money is gonna come from outside sources anyway. People are gonna come in and stay at a hotel unless they're homeless, bloody, thank you, wrong. They're gonna come in and stay at a hotel and they're gonna pay that A&P tax. I do it all the time when I go to Fayetteville, you know, I pay an A&P tax.
We pay it when we.
You gotta play it when you go to your bit.
Yeah, we're paying a lot of business stuff.
And that was another thing that we also looked at. I think, Keith, you had found that where it showed like cities around us and how much, what their A&P tax went for and what their commission, like how it was funded, like some 100%, some cities 100% goes to parks. I mean, we were looking at some of those. So you're shaking your head no. So what do you think? What, okay, so what was Benton's? So, do you remember?
So Ben's is all the commission. They allocate theirs to parks, which means that the commission chooses to give it to parks.
Okay.
And that's roughly.
That's where I got the 100%.
A&P to allocate any money to certain parks.
That designate any money straight
Yeah, I'm
to parks,
sorry.
yeah. Conway's would be an example that designates it.
One thing we gotta remember though, if we had done this last year, it'd been a totally different ballgame. Because the council could have done something. This time it's totally different. Like, we'll be the first city that's gonna send this to a vote.
Since the law changed.
Since the law changed. Literally, it got brought to us in January. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah.
No.
February.
February. February.
Just
Maybe
February.
it was
Okay. Literally, like, we met on Tuesday.
2 weeks
I
later.
wasn't 2 weeks. It was like the very next Monday, they passed that law. We couldn't do anything about it.
It went before the committee on a Thursday and was signed on Friday.
So, yes, so that's correct. Now, there are cities that Benton, it was passed by council. They're the majority of cities in the state. They passed, just like Bryant did the first time,
Right.
they passed their A&P by council. There are cities that did pass it with a vote. I mean, Conway's is an example that went to a vote, and they do designate theirs
But that's
to parks.
bond money. That's why they did it that way.
Yeah.
But they took it to the people to vote, and they designate it.
For a bond.
But at this point, it's designated, 70% of that is designated to parks.
Say so.
I mean, we can talk.
And again, I think that's a good point. The law changed, it goes to the people for a vote. The people of Bryant want parks. And that's what they want, that's the investment that they're gonna go and vote for. That's in 2016, reissuing of the bond that built the parkway, the fire stations, parks got $4.5 million. we took a list of requests that our partners had asked us for to them and said, this is what we'll spend that $4.5 million on. And they got out and voted. Very similar to this situation, if it is designated to parks. It's very clear, very transparent, honest. This is exactly what we'll do with the money.
Because I guess on the flip side of that, if it's on the ballot where it's saying 60% to whatever promotion, this, that, and the other, I was wondering, would that not be so clear to the voter as to what they're actually, what they're voting for?
Yeah, I think you would have to be honest and say it's gonna go to a commission that hasn't been formed yet, and so we don't know.
Well, you can't put that on it. Yeah. But yeah.
Will you be able to put exactly on the ballot, are you gonna be able to put exactly like this, so much of this tax is going to parks and it will pay for these 25 items?
Can you put it on the ballot that way?
I don't think you can put that.
It just,
Let me ask another question. Is it fair to downplay the Parks Committee?
What?
Is it fair to downplay the Parks Committee?
What are you saying?
The future Parks Committee, is it fair to downplay you guys?
Well, you're doing that now.
I feel like that's been done.
Oh, absolutely, it's been done.
I do, when we present 80, and we come back and we're getting handed
Who's gonna be the commission?
30, we don't know.
Two
Have you read it?
restaurant owners.
2 restaurant, yeah, 2 hotels, 2
There's
restaurants.
gonna be volunteers, business people, just like you guys, from the community. That's my question. Is it fair to downplay the future of that committee, just like it is you guys? That's all I'm asking. They're gonna be your peers.
I reject the idea that we're gonna be downplaying the commission. We are talking about going from, hang on a minute. Let me finish.
Richard, go.
You're talking about going from 80, and we knew we weren't gonna get 80. That was the starting point.
Right.
But to go from 80 to 35 is a repudiation of the work of this committee. 30. Okay, going down 50%, you basically said this is a priority of the parks that we have on the parks. We're going a different direction. At the same time, we've heard discussion of bringing in some sort of pie-in-the-sky tourist attraction that's been undefined. The feasibility has never been studied.
The whole time.
Oh, let him finish.
But what you're talking about now, we have in hand a plan, okay, that we want to implement. The people of Bryant, maybe not all the council members, but the people that elected you and you represent have said they want to put in place. Now, the other side of this is we've got this money we want to reserve for something. We don't know what it is, but I'll bet it has to do with this big tourist attraction that's been thrown out there that really ought to be paid for by the private sector, not put on the backs of the taxpayers of Bryant. That's not their money. We need to spend money. I don't have a special interest group except the kids that play on these fields. That's it. And there's more than 1,000 of them that have been involved in developing this plan and this vision. And I think that that 30% is a slap in the face to everybody's efforts that has already been put in. I hear people talking about, something we're going to bring in. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it's going to cost.
It's a mystery box.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll tell you, that pigeonholes the Parks Department, in my mind, especially given our history with the A&P, and I know it's going to be a different A&P and different people, but there's not a whole lot of reason people to put all their eggs in that basket to the tune of, what is that, 60? There ought to be somewhere at least in the middle. We're certainly willing to negotiate, or we're not in a position to negotiate, but to recommend.
So what would you be happy with?
I think 60%. And I've got to rely on these people that do this every day for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And what he just laid out was not a recommendation for 3.8%. He laid out the scenarios of what we're going to get at different levels. That's all he was laying out. You got 3.8 mils, you get this. You got other, 3.0, you get this. That's all he's laying out. And the people of Bryant need to know what the implications of this vote is going to be when it comes to the Parks Department and the will that's been expressed overwhelmingly with the involvement.
But see, like Lisa said, we have to look at the whole picture. No one's not saying we don't support parks. That's what is missing here.
No, it's not missing, I think.
When
Yeah.
the perception is there, it's the perception. Maybe, and a lot of people's perception is their reality. So the perception of what happened between the recommendation to the amendment, there's a perception, at least in my opinion. So whether that's real or not, it's a perception. And so that's what a lot of maybe not as involved people in the day-to-day of council and parks, but as an outsider, and as a parks user looking in, you see that and go, like that looks like a little bit of a, kind of a big pushback there, so.
Mr. Richard.
Sure.
Is parks going to support anything under 60%?
I can't speak for the Parks Committee. I can't speak for them.
Would you support anything under 60%?
I'd have to see what the numbers and what the implications would be. But I sure support a whole lot more than 35%. And I'm just giving you an answer.
And I'm looking at the budget book that we
Okay.
worked with, 2023 budget.
Okay.
And the pool pack keeps coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the pool, it's not listed as pool pack in the budget book. Where is this? And the budget book gives us numbers to go by. And looking at the stuff for the 20, things that.
Wasn't making sense.
I don't think it was I mean, and that is stuff that, this has been the numbers, and Chris actually maybe to answer this. Capital improvement plan,
How is it not in there?
it
On the
wasn't.
budget book?
We have been, we have been interviewing engineering firms. With the help of the engineering department. And we've chosen one, and we were going to bring, to council this month, asking for some money to hire that engineering firm to put together a plan, for the replacement of the pool pack, because it's bigger than just changing out a piece of equipment. There's a lot of other questions that went into that, as far as if there needs to be any changes to the facility to help the pool pack's lifespan. It's a long process.
And also, when the budget book was done last fall, pool pack didn't seem, we'd known it was coming at some point, but it has just recently gotten a lot worse to where we're now getting feedback like you're running out of time to repair it. You're gonna have to replace it. A year ago, we were hopeful that we could still limp along and get a few more years out of it as
So
well.
I think
but
that's why it's not in the budget.
No, it was
We
not
were
part
hoping
of
to
that
get-
one yet.
We were hoping to get to 2025, but, it went down 3 months ago.
And this has always been a fluid document.
Yes, so that's what I'm looking at. It's probably got $1.5 million, $2 million worth of expenses. And from a council perspective, I look at numbers. That's how you make a wise decision.
Mhm.
We don't have all the numbers. That's the thing.
But we've always
we
made
have-
adjustments.
Right, if we spent every dollar off of A&D that generates the first year, you pay for everything on this list. That's what I'm saying, in the budget book, that's all we have to go by are the numbers that we're given, so.
But I think that what we're saying is that, yes, you have this list, but when the master plan comes out, there will be adjustments to this. I'll use
I know, but we're not
lacrosse.
seeing the master plan, we're eager to see it.
But
It's helpful to see it.
But there's always been changes that are made. Last year, at one time, the lighting at Midland was still years away. That flipped because a group went out and raised money, and so we moved that up. That's always been with Parks Committee and with council. That's always been everyone working together to do that. On this list too, you're not gonna see anything for lacrosse because I didn't know who Adam Baker was when this list happened. So these are things changing as groups come in and we're making.
And I would like to say that at 35%, none of it's gonna get done. Like, there has been no capital improvement budget to even plan with. So, we have numbers, right? We can, but we have not had the ability to plan ahead to get everything, that we see that needs to be accomplished, because there has been no budget. You give us a budget, you designate this money to parks, and we're talking about 3.7 million a year that we know we're gonna get. All we've ever worked on, year in, year out, since I've been Parks Director, is 2.5 million. That's the only budget we knew we had. That's it. That's just operations. So there was no ability to plan ahead. There was just adding to a list, getting some idea of what it might cost, and hoping at some point there would be funding to do those things. And as people would come to us, we would say, yes, that's a great idea. We'd love to do that. Let's put it on our list. With no funding. So if you gave the Parks Department a budget of $3.7 million a year, you would see a dramatic change. You would see constant progress. You would see repairs done quickly. You would see improvements year after year after year. A continued climb to excellence. That's what you'd see. So that's part of the reality that we live in. When you give us 2.5 to operate, but we have all these other things that need to get done and there's no budget for, you pigeonhole us. We cannot provide the services and the quality that the residents and the people who come to our parks expect from us. And if you do 3.7, 3.5, or 30% at 3 mills, nothing's changed. Except we're not in the general fund. And we have a little bit less for operations.
We're going back to where we were previous years.
If you do 70%, 67%, you have changed this department for generations. There's never going to be a time that I can foresee the city of Bryant needing less money for parks. It is always going to be demand, because this town is about families and quality of life. You're always going to have, and I would say, because of the expansion in parks to build this park, you as a city, we've said this is a priority, and the $3.7 million budget is the proper budget to take care of what we have. There's not going to be a time in the future, in my opinion, that Bryant Parks is going to need less than $3.7 million a year to do it right. That's not coming. Things aren't getting cheaper. People are not going to quit asking for parks improvements. We built 4 great pickleball courts, and what do we hear? These are amazing. Can you build more like that? And that's fine. I'm not complaining. We have an amazing facility at the center, but we have the Boys and Girls Club, we have pickleballers, we have basketballers, we have day pass people, we have the senior adults. Everybody is fighting for space there. So there's not going to be a time where we look at this system and go, yeah, we don't need $3 anymore.
I've lived in 7 different states, and I will tell you by far, I've only been here for 7 years. I've never seen a town with a park like this. So I don't use that many of them. Again, I'm a dog parker. I don't have kids, so I don't have them in swimming and basketball and all that stuff. So that's my park. But I have never, and I've lived in some, we'll call more affluent parts of the United States, and they've got nice parks. But to see what I've seen grown, it's just since I've been here, and knowing that it's being utilized, it's not being wasted. So if we don't maintain what we got and we fall to the wayside, guess what? It's going to cost more to get you back to where you were. And with inflation going on, you're going to be in trouble.
Here's to add to that. When my kids, Brad's kids were growing up, we had one ballpark. One age group played on one field, one age group growing up, young and old.
My kids were the same thing, but mine, I mean, mine aren't that much, yeah.
Played on this field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was all you had.
Yeah, that
And
was
now
it.
we've got every field over here filled up every single weekend with them backed up, wanting to come here for a grass field, which is cooler. That makes them want to be here even more. We got everything in the world going for us here. We mess it up, nobody's fault but our own.
And if we lose it, they'll go elsewhere, which defeats the whole purpose.
That's a good point, Joe.
Which then your property,
We're gonna
your
have
property
to-
taxes
The
go up.
money's gonna have to be spent.
And we haven't raised property or real estate taxes.
Here's a good example, look at our infrastructure in the US. We're hurting. We're hurting. Don't tell me you're gonna tax me again. We got money out there that we're paying for stupid stuff, you know? But that's fallen to the wayside. But you know what? That's a big thing that affects every single one of us. My husband's in the utility business, but anyways, I mean, the bridges that are falling, I would think we'd all say, they need money. But where's some of this other money going? I'm not gonna say it's all stupid, but there's some stupid stuff. But if you know it's needed here, and you've got monies that aren't allocated for something else, and we can't even meet minimum here, why would you not use those dollars to keep what you got where it needs to be? You're taking a chance, you're rolling the dice. And you're gonna pay more when stuff goes bad and you have to rebuild it instead of maintaining it. I'm not saying all of it, but I think going from 80 to 30, that's a big drop. And I'm not into all this stuff, this is my first meeting here, but perhaps something flip on the table from 60 to 35, just like that. Those are big numbers, it is, it's perception. I'm not involved in all this, this is just me, Kelly, homeowner talking. 80 to 30, and we can't maintain on 30, and we've got money that is not allocated towards other things that can be used to maintain what we have, that we've invested in, that we are future investing in. Ridiculous. That's just my, I gotta go, I wanna get that in. But that's the point.
Let's move on to old business.
Oh, she may have another, I don't know if she has
Thanks for
another
the invite.
input.
Thanks for showing
Yeah,
us.
Charlie, thank you.
I think he has another public comment.
I don't live in this town, I live in Alexandria, I moved here like 4 years ago. Am I allowed to say something?
Sure. Big dog.
Bring to your attention that right now, the park system, some of the things that I've observed since I came here 4 years ago, there are things that were constructed in such a manner that if someone wants to complain, they can shut your parks down completely. The Americans with Disabilities Act. It's easily fixed and stuff like that, but I listened to what you were saying about how you're gonna do plans for improvements. If you do an improvement to something, then that improvement would include bringing everything up to the current standards. Whereas some of the stuff I observed when I first came here 4 years ago, they could have been installed before they would require compliance with the current standards. So you have to look at each one of the things that's going on. And it's just a vulnerability when the lady was talking about bringing in tournaments and stuff like that. If you bring people in from the outside and something, and they want to complain about the way that things are looking right now and not complying with the ADA current standards, you're leaving yourself open to someone making a complaint with the U.S. Department of the Interior that could cause investigations and could cause shutdown. So just so you're aware of that. So please, if you're going to be doing any improvements on your properties, even like putting lights in or something like that in one area where you had one of the sports areas or something that you were talking about, that's an improvement that requires that entire area to be brought up to the current standards. And I don't know whether you're, familiar with that or not. And anything, of course, when you're doing your master plan now with brand new construction, it would, go unsaid that you really should make sure that the dollars that you have would include paying for current compliance with the ADA.
That's all. It's
outside observation.
Good work.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
But, appreciate it, and I love your park here, I really, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, old business. The A&P recommendation to council.
I wanna recommend going back to 70% to parks. Do what?
Nothing, they were all talking about the dogs, I was just kind of cracking up there.
Oh.
Sorry, I just.
Okay, do you wanna make a motion?
Motion, yes. We got a 70 to parks and
Okay, so,
I'll second.
oh, wait, so you wanna make a?
So then that's putting
recommendation? So what do you
25.
wanna do, the 70 to parks and 30 to the commission, or?
5%, is that 5% administration non-negotiable? I mean, does that have to happen as part of,
I think
It doesn't
5% is non-negotiable.
what was, or somebody remind me?
It'll require some additional staff in the city.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, okay.
So when we said 80-20, we didn't take into account the 5%, is that what it was, or?
That's why I was.
Yeah, we just,
I think it was 80% for parks is really what the intent was.
We didn't
I think
even,
the way-
we didn't talk about the remaining.
Right.
The law raised it up to 5%, you know? Is it
Is that to-
correct?
Ashley's not here to
I
tell
think
us.
that's just a bill, yeah, that's just,
5%, 3 times.
Is it up to 5% of?
No, I'm talking
of
about the
that money
admin.
Can go to
I don't
admin.
know that,
I was talking about the admin, not the
I thought
minutes.
so, no, it doesn't.
I think you could,
A hard
whatever's
fact.
in the key is whatever's in the ordinance that goes to the voters. I think the council can put percentages however they want.
As in, council can put these percentages however they want. Yes,
Right.
you're just listening
No,
to
yeah.
feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
and the previous A&P, that's about what was spent on admin of that 18.
Was that 5%? Was it more than that?
They didn't have any.
They didn't have any. Okay, so that's why, hindsight, it's like, hey,
There-
let's fix it.
I mean, does legal count as admin? I guess legal didn't count
They
as.
did that at the very, very end, they didn't even spend hardly anything on it.
My numbers may be wrong on that then.
On the 5%.
On the what?
I didn't listen, I mean, Chris Madison may have gotten paid for something else, I don't know.
We got paid at the very, very end, like 2 meetings.
I think that 5% goes with what was presented, what was on the agenda. Must be a reason for that. So that's, Cody, are you saying 70%, 25 and 5? 70-30 or
Yes, and, well, you have to do the admin, you know.
70, 25 and 5?
So 25 to
The
the
commission.
commission.
Keith, you're right. Well, it was there. And they rehired again,
And 5.
that's what happened.
So,
Yeah.
could the city attorney do the admin? Hold on, city
No,
attorney?
He worked for the.
He worked for the,
Jefferson A&P. I'm thinking,
yeah,
you're right.
that's, not- yeah.
So the city attorney, hold on, I'm confused.
That's getting it.
He got, it was, that's.
That was part of the problem.
So we have to have admin.
What I
now.
remember. That's what, I'm like, wait a minute. That was part of the
It'll still
problem.
require somebody to.
Yeah.
If you want to do it right.
That's coming back.
Which we wanted, right?
Yes, if you want to do it right, it's nice to have somebody staff the committee.
One of the financial.
Minutes to handle,
All that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
keeping track of what they're voting on, what
I'm not
dollars are going, I mean, it's
Yeah.
if it's
I think
done well and done
5% is a
right.
safe number for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
And that's where that number's coming from.
and it
That's-
can be handled any way the commission wants to, but it's something that is there.
Yes, 70, 25, 5.
You got voted, need motion,
So I got Cody
So Cody's
motion,
making a motion to,
Richard second.
Second.
so, all in favor, aye?
All right.
All opposed, the same? Motion carries.
New business?
New business. What do you have out there?
Yeah.
Is there any new business? Nope. No new business?
Yeah.
Cody, you got any new business?
No, I'm ready to adjourn.
Cody, you wanna make a,
Motion to adjourn? Absolutely, yes.
I second it, boss.
okay, so, we adjourn.